Hello everyone, and thank you so much for coming to this talk on sustainability in interiors, which is a massive topic and one that we're only going to be able to scratch the surface of in such a short time. And I'm also aware that we are competing against the call of the lunchtime gong, so I'm very thankful for you to come along at this time. I'm also so pleased that we've got such a wonderful panel of experts this afternoon. We are still waiting on one who's been delayed, but I will introduce you to him anyway so that hopefully if he turns up, you'll know who he is. So first of all, to my left is Jules Haynes of the Haynes Collection, whose stand you will find at F167, and I hope you will all go rushing off afterwards to see it, because she's very important in this whole area of sustainability and interiors. And can I point out, is wearing a dress made from a Ralph Lauren bedsheet. So if that's not inspirational, I don't know what is. Jules founded her business specifically to find a solution to the environmental challenges facing the interiors industry. Her site sells fabric offcuts that would otherwise be headed for landfill. And I know that I'll be talking to a lot of people this afternoon in the trade, so you're all aware of the waste that's generated. She will take leftovers from projects large and small. A piece of material 50 centimetres square is fine for her, so nothing is too small. She'll also take seconds where the printing has gone wrong, but our sort of lay eye may not even notice. And to date, the Haynes Collection has rehomed over 10,000 metres of waste textiles, and that includes 4 metres for my bathroom blind, which I'm very pleased about. In addition to resale, Jules also takes donations and donates a proportion of her sales to charity, and she also looks at wallpaper, lights and accessories. Her lampshade workshops are always sell-out events. And next month, she is launching Sustainable Interiors, a selection of 10-minute videos talking to businesses who are focused on making a difference in our industry. Jules said to me when I first spoke to her, she wants to make it easier to give her your leftovers than putting them in the bin, which is such a brilliant sort of mantra to have. And next to Jules is Simone Suss, the founder of Studio Suss, frequently found on lists of the world's top 100 designers, and she works with clients both residential and commercial who want contemporary, timeless, but also sustainable interiors. And her studio focuses on using natural materials whenever possible. She's also an alumnus of the University of Cambridge Institute for Sustainability Leadership and sits on the Professional Practice and Sustainability Committee of the British Institute of Interior Design and is a founding signatory of the Interior Design Collaborate Declares, collaborating with colleagues on the industry's sustainability agenda and long-term strategy. And you can see why I needed my notes. That's a lot of very long words, but she knows all about it. And hopefully joining us is Ray Clark, the founder of Atelier Ray Clark, who trained in fashion and printed textile design. But then when a friend gave him a pair of office chairs, he realized he'd found his métier and he retrained in upholstery. He's passionate about sustainability from the side of restoring and reinventing vintage and heritage pieces. And his work has been featured on Money for Nothing, George Clark's Old House, New Home, as well as several national newspapers and British Vogue. And for those of you who don't know me, I'm Kate Watson-Smythe. I'm founder of the 10-year-old blog madaboutthehouse.com and author of 3 books of the same name. And the blog includes a section called Do Less Harm, where I've compiled a list of companies who are trying to minimize their footprint on the planet on the basis that it's very difficult, as I'm sure you all are aware, to get everything right all the time, pretty much impossible. So we have to make choices. So the directory of Do Less Harm is about those choices that people are making. I've also collaborated with Love Your Home just outside on a fully sustainable sofa with changeable covers made from fashion offcuts and velvet from recycled plastic bottles. So that's us. Now, I want to start by talking about the waste of the interior design industry. It's something we all throw out there, we talk about a lot, but I think, Jules, you're going to hit us with some numbers as to just how bad it is.
Well, what's quite interesting is there's actually not that much information out there at the moment. We all know about fashion textiles, and we actually don't know that much about homeware textiles. But what I have found from a report from 2019 is that every year in the UK, 400,000 tonnes of homeware textiles is thrown away into landfill. The total amount of textiles, which includes fashion, is around 950,000. So that means that 42% of the textiles that are in landfill at the moment are from our home, which is quite shocking because we know about fashion and fast fashion, but nearly half of it being from the home, which does include carpets and duvet covers and curtains and stuff, but it's pretty huge.
Yeah, that's massive, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think we tend, again, we're very aware of it with fashion. We know if we buy a cheap top that it's not going to last. So we might, well, we're getting better, I think, but we might have thrown it away without a second thought. But given that we hopefully keep our interior materials for longer, you would think it would be better. Although I had a new kitchen worktop about 4 years ago, which was one of those sort of quartz Caesar stone. And the team that came to fit it said they had more than one client who replaced their worktop every year just because they were bored.
Yeah.
And, you know, so you're not only, you know, reducing natural resources, but you're also creating waste of stuff that's then going to stay there forever. So it is really shocking. And I wanted to sort of stick, we all know that mantra, reduce, reuse, recycle. And I thought, had we got Ray, we were covering all three bases there. But Simone, you run your studio, so very much on the reduce element of those things. Your practice is as sustainable as it can be. Was that your aim when you set up, or have you learned as you've gone along?
Sustainability has always been of interest to me, and actually it's something that is evolving. So when I studied I did online school while COVID was happening at the University of Cambridge, but it was quite amazing because I was always being picked up. I was always very keen to reduce and reuse as many things and choose materials wisely, but essentially consumption is the enemy of sustainability. So it's how do we make sustainable choices wherever we can so that we're still doing our job as interior designers and providing our clients with new things that they love, but also doing good for the planet. So it's definitely been a journey, and I'm definitely learning all the time. But essentially, as a studio, I really have a real focus on sending as little to landfill as possible. Ideally, we don't get any skips on our projects. If we'll either, if we're stripping a house out, for example, we'll start with the furniture. Can we sell the furniture? And if we can't sell the furniture, can we donate the furniture somewhere so that it's just staying out of landfill? And it's the same for bathrooms. I just redid my daughter's bathroom, for example, because someone else was moving in there and they wanted a shower, not a bath. And so we put it on free cycle. And it was just amazing because then they were just so happy that they were getting something for free. I was so happy that we weren't sending it to a skip. And it's just those small things that we can all do within our practices that just make a really big difference because it stops things going to landfill. And that's such a big issue. It's not just the textile waste, it's the hard waste as well, with worktops, with flooring, and with everything else. It's trying to find a second home for all those goods.
And it does have to become easier, doesn't it? Because as you say, I remember years ago, friends trying to get rid of things on eBay, and it would cost more in postage, or then they'd have to wait in and 3 people wouldn't turn up to look at it. And so free cycle is perhaps an easier way because it's free.
Yes.
And as you say, you're giving it away, but it's going to a good home. So that it's amazing that you never use a skip. Well done.
Well, we try not to.
Yeah.
We try not to. You know, occasionally there are things like, you know, where there's MDF that needs to be ripped off, then that, you know, sometimes it's easier to send things to waste. But we always use people who take things and recycle them as much as possible rather than just sending it straight in a skip that's just going to go straight to the dump.
And do you think attitudes can take a long time to change, but I mean, it may be a sort of vicious circle that you're attracting clients who are interested in sustainability, or you're only taking on clients who are only interested in sustainability. But for lots of people who, you know, don't necessarily label themselves at the sustainability end, Is there a change of attitude among the clients, or is there still a lot of, I don't care, I just want that sofa?
I'd say it's a bit of both, really. Unfortunately, people, I feel very strongly about sustainability, but I also have a business to run. So I'm not going to choose just sustainable clients who are coming to us because they want to be sustainable. However, we have a preference. And when we're doing our edit and whatever we're showing our clients always has a sustainable angle, even though it's not necessarily what the client has asked for, it will fit the brief. In terms of how I source things for clients, if it fits, functionally it needs to work, aesthetically it needs to work, and if it's sustainable, then that's a kind of triple win for me. So if it's got the sustainability angle, I will put that to the top of the functional and aesthetic, and we'll always show the clients. And ideally, our clients will fill in, they will also get that feel-good factor about buying something that they know is doing good for the planet. On the professional side, actually, clients who want clients who are going for a B Corp status, they are now coming to us for sustainability because we can help their interiors be more sustainable. So that's really important, I think, as more businesses are picking it up and it's becoming more central to their business ethos, to be able to say that, yes, for a B Corp, everything is sustainable, including my interior. That's, I think, really key for us and really key for them. But on the private side, with our clients at the moment, yes, it's nice to have if it's sustainable as well, but really, does it look and does it feel right? Because actually the sustainability thing is less important to them, but it's really important to us. So I can say hand on heart, we only put in things that we know are good choices, even though it's less important to our clients, it's really important to us, and so it really works, and the clients are always really happy with it. I think they still get an extra feel-good factor if they know that something they're putting in their house is doing good for the planet.
And do you find, Jules, attitudes have changed? I mean, when you set up, which was, correct me,
about
two years ago, were you going to companies and saying, give me your tiny bits of waste, and they were like, well, what are you going to do with that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like even since Decorex was last on 2 years ago, everything has changed so much, but in a wonderful way. I think everyone's sharing the learning, and that's really important. Like, as you said at the beginning, nobody is 100% knows everything and able to do everything that they can. So by us, sharing what we know and what we've learned, everyone is evolving. And I think lockdown, maybe that was a bit of a silver lining, that people were then thinking about the environment and our impact on the earth. And when I first started, people were like, what? Why are you doing that? Like, why would you want that? Exactly as you said. And now we have a lot of people approaching us saying, oh, we have 2 meters. Can you do anything with it? And, that's a blind. So, yes, I can.
It's difficult, isn't it? I'm interested from both of you obviously we all have to take responsibility, but is the onus on us or you running businesses? So obviously you've got a job to do, you've got to run a business. Is it up to us to educate clients, or is it up to the clients? Where does the onus lie between trying to run your business and also steer people towards something?
Yeah, I think it comes down to a pragmatic approach of, we all need to do something. And I think that's another thing that COVID taught us, was there's these massive overarching global problems, but actually if we work together, and small actions by individuals really can have an impact. By staying in, we helped with the pandemic. By everyone just making small changes, we have a chance in fighting climate change and making the world a better place. But everyone needs to take responsibility, and it's not something that is regulated for at the moment, but it is something that's really important. And so I think just by individuals, businesses making those small choices, we're voting with how we spend our money and how we spend our clients' money. So if our clients are giving us hundreds of thousands, if not millions of pounds of their money to spend, I want to put that into companies who I know are doing good for the world. And so it's a slow education. I think we all have an onus as individuals, as business owners and everything else, to just put our funds and reward companies who are doing good for the planet. Sometimes there are other alternative companies. There isn't necessarily a sustainable company that might fit that exact niche, but I think actually the world is catching up, and actually I think that people used to say, well, it's going to be even more expensive if it's sustainable. I don't think that's true anymore. I think that a lot of the kind of established companies are being more sustainable, and it's about finding out and educating yourselves, and then being able to educate the clients and the wider construction team on the other companies out there doing good things. And I think more B Corps and more companies who've got Planet Mark or whatever other credentials there are. I think there's a kind of consensus of, well, I'd rather give my money to people who are doing really, creating really good natural materials, really good paints that also are very functional and really hard wearing and everything else. I'd rather be giving my money to those than the people I know don't have any sort of sustainability agenda. They're not really thinking about their waste. They're not really looking at the toxins in their items. And so it's a matter of educating ourselves and then educating our clients and the wider teams we work with.
And I think there is much more choice now, isn't there? I think we're open to it. Have you found there's more?
Yeah,
more?
Definitely. And we're actually launching a series next month called Sustainable Interiors, where we're going around and talking to these brilliant businesses that are, really focused on having low impact, reducing their waste, and by sharing. And I'm doing it because I want to learn, and I want everyone to sort of know about these amazing little businesses. So yeah, I think it's all about sharing, and they're popping up everywhere. And actually, there's so many that are here today. It's really impressive to see.
Well, I came in, as many of you will, I think, by the main entrance, and Charlotte Raffo, who I've known for many years, runs a business called the Monkey Puzzle Tree, and she was showing me a cushion she's made, and it has a very pretty fringe on it, which had been left over from the weaving process and was sitting on the floor, and she sort of picked it up and went, hang on, that's really pretty, and it's now incorporated in the cushion. But I think what's interesting and where we really need to get to is that sustainable and eco, I mean, we went through it in fashion. It's a bit sort of Birkenstocks and muesli, and oh, it's sustainable, that's why it's brown. And I think we're now hopefully getting to a point where actually you can't tell if it's sustainable, because either because you expect it to be, or because the richness of the colours and the fabrics and so on and so forth mean that's I would have that anyway, and it's a sort of bonus that it looks pretty. It's a bit less hair shirt, I think.
Yeah, totally. I mean, that's certainly something that we do for our clients. We're very lucky to operate in an ultra high net worth individual, so we've been working on some amazing properties recently. And the great thing about sustainability now is that we're not compromising. I'm not a vegan Birkenstock wearing person. My clients, not there's anything wrong with Birkenstocks, all vegans, but my clients feel the same. It's very much a pragmatic approach. They still want that kind of luxury without compromise interior. And you wouldn't know from looking at the interiors at all. No one would know that while doing it, the items that we sourced were really sustainable, plus we offset however many tons of carbon, plus however many trees were planted, because it's all invisible. What matters to the client is that their beautiful interior fits, everything fits and it looks really lovely and wonderful. And that's how they view it, but we know for ourselves that it's sustainable. So say, for example, I don't know if Jennifer Manners is in here today, but her rugs are really luxurious, beautiful, and made from recycled plastic, which means that not only are they beautiful and feel really amazing, they feel like silk, but actually they're super, super hard wearing. And if anything got spilt on one of Jennifer Manners' recycled plastic rugs, you can actually use bleach. So it makes it better than one of the silk rugs because it's more hard wearing. Plus, it's made from recycled plastic, so it's taking thousands of bottles out of landfill. Plus, she's supporting local communities in Nepal, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like, these rugs are amazing and no compromise at all. They are totally luxurious and beautiful, and also doing really good things for the planet.
And I think there's also a new value on what people perceive as luxury and beautiful, and people are now putting a lot of value in the fact that it is upcycled, and so I know lots of people would now actually would prefer to spend more on something that they know has come from a low impact, good for the environment place, and so I think our ideas of what is luxury, what is the best thing, what's on trend, is actually now becoming a really positive thing for us, and people actually prefer that and put that in the box of ticking that high value.
Yeah.
And what I did want to bring Ray in, but he's not here, so I don't know if you know about this, but also talking about materials, we understandably had a conversation before we met here for the first time today as what we were going to talk about. And Ray, I think, was very keen to talk about the materials. And so obviously he reupholsters, and that I think is, I mean, it's kind of a trend using vintage, but it's also very important. You know, for many years, brown furniture has been unfashionable. No one wants to buy it. And I think we're getting back into that notion of the craftsmanship and the beauty of something that has a patina and character, and we can reupholster chairs. So I have in my sitting room a little sofa that was new. My great-grandmother bought new, and she was born in 1890 something, so I mean, it's quite old. And it's been reupholstered a couple of times. And I said to Ray, and I don't know if you know about this, can sort of speak on this, in terms of materials, we have a lot of vegan leather thrown at us. And my question was, isn't that plastic? I don't know if Simone or Jules, you know anything about it.
I, as far as I'm aware, it is plastic, and that's a shame. But you probably know a
well,
bit
there
more.
are vegan leathers, I think, made from pineapple, and I think there's definitely lots of interesting things being made from lots of different offcuts. And the thing is, I think there's vegan leather as in there's vegan leather from waste, and I definitely see the value in that. But then there's also kind of pleather vegan leather, which is kind of the plastic, which I don't know. But that's kind of the thing with sustainability is there's always like another side to it.
Problem,
so you know, you try and be really good and have your vegan leather, but then actually it's full of, I don't know, polymers that don't ever break down in landfill or anything like that, and so actually it's not so good. So that's why I think just being able to educate yourself as to what your stance is along all of these different things. You know, I'm not a vegan interior designer, and people have pulled me up on that for how can you be a sustainable interior designer if you're not a vegan interior designer, and that's just how I am. I don't believe that you have to be vegan to be sustainable, but you know, everyone will have their own beliefs, and I think only by educating yourself, you're comfortable with actually this is my hard line that I'm not going to pass. Whereas I'm just trying to do my best in every decision that I make, and so I'm not going to hold myself up and say I'm 100%, you know, the most sustainable designer in the world, because I'm definitely not. But I'm just trying my best, and I think that's what we all need to do. We just got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, whether you're specifying vegan or vintage or whatever else it is, it's about just knowing that you're comfortable in yourself with what your stance is, and just being educated about the things that you're purchasing.
Well, this was where my Do Less Harm directory came from, because I was at the launch of a beauty brand who'd very proudly, and they were right to be proud, had remade all their packaging out of recycled plastic, and all their labels were a byproduct of the sugarcane industry. So it was all waste products reused, and I was saying, you know, I thought this was absolutely fabulous. And someone walked past me and went, comes from Brazil on a ship though. and that was the point at which I thought this was why I called it Do Less Harm, because it at the moment we can't do it all. So you've got to pick your choice. And I think when it comes to buying furniture, do you want the piece that was made in the UK so there's no transport damage or environmental issues, or are you happy to pay for it to come with a lot of other things on a ship, but it's been produced in a sustainable, more eco way? And this is the dilemma I think we all face, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's of just being mindful. I think it's just everything that you do, whether it's, you know, your sandwiches that you made for today, whether you're covering it in one-use plastic, or whether you're able to get into buying things so you can upcycle them. I think however your life runs, you're able to, and once you start looking as well, you start seeing everything. You know, think however many years ago when we weren't charged for plastic bags, and we all just took a plastic bag in the supermarket, didn't even think about it. And now, and someone once said to me, you know, think every single plastic toothbrush that you've had is in landfill, still around somewhere, and your parents probably as well, you know, and you start sort of seeing it. So I think that's it, you know, just being mindful and making those changes, and then your whole life sort of, you know, you roll into it.
And I think it's also up to interior designers in the middle between the manufacturer and the client to start to push for things. This can sound like I'm plugging my sofa, and I'm trying not to, but I just want the experience of making it. was that it was made in the UK because of the pandemic, and it had been due to be made in Poland, where Love Your Home worked a lot with them. And there have been sort of sticking points from British manufacturers about, well, we haven't done it that way, so we can't do it that way. And we don't, we always use foam to shape these chairs, so we don't know what it's like working with coconut fibre. So I think the interior design industry is sort of in the middle, isn't it, between, as I say, people making, we need to push the people making the things to do what we want and help them see that's acceptable, as well as trying to show clients that it can still be beautiful and not look like it's come for sustainable. So I mean, we've just got a few minutes before we might take some questions, but what would both of you, your sort of wishes for the industry or practice going forward? What do you need us to do to make it easier? What would you dream of?
I think for me it would be to think about the whole life cycle of the product that you're buying, and people are now evolving to be great designers, so that a piece of glass perhaps going in a building, I know that there's some restrictions that you can, if you make it a certain size, then it can be later when it's reused, it can be a sideboard, things like that. So the design part of it is interesting, and then obviously the use, making sure that you're looking after it. I think it'd be great if designers gave more advice about how to increase the life of an item, and also then obviously for me it's the waste. So thinking if it still has life in it, using things like FreeCycle, obviously coming to us with any leftovers, but considering the whole life cycle of that product, and how you can be a part in it lasting longer and having a low impact on the earth.
That's interesting about the glass. So there's a size?
Yeah. So I spoke to an interior designer, and she deals with a lot of cradle-to-cradle accredited businesses. And when she was just specking out a glass panel for a building, and she didn't make it any deeper than 60 centimetres, so that later, when the building was potentially broken down or moved for a different use, that thick piece of glass could actually be reused and put horizontally as a table or a sideboard in a kitchen.
Because that's kitchen depth,
yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. So it's just really interesting the way that people, right from the beginning, are now designing. And I think also if you even look about how schools and educating children, like I feel like this is just something that has to move on, and I feel a bit late to the party because when I was at school, university, this was not what we were talking about. So I think it's something that we're just slowly getting better at, which is great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's about thinking about the whole life cycle of anything. So starting from, if it's a construction, if it's a new build, for example, speaking to the wider team, have we thought about how to make not going outside of our remit in terms of, yes, we're the interior designers, but actually we're involved in the whole construction process. And so making sure that the contractors and the architects are aware that, we want to be as energy efficient in the house as possible. We want to be recycling rainwater if possible. We want to be using anything that nature throws at the building and using it as efficiently as possible, because energy consumption, all of those sorts of questions, and essentially it's really important that everything is thought about right at the start. And then when it comes to actually our part in the process, what are we specifying? Who are we specifying from? What are they doing that's being sustainable? So the British Institute of Interior Designers, we've just launched a specifying guide, which is free for anyone to use. You don't have to be a BIID member.
Where do you get it?
That's on the BIID website. So they actually have a sustainability strategy, which I was really happy to be part of. But essentially, we have done a specifying guide so that as interior designers, we can all be asking the right questions about the materials that we're specifying. And so you understand more about the paints and the papers and the marble and whatever finish it is that you're looking for. So that's one thing. And then also Interior Design Declares, which is part of the Built Environment Declares, which is basically interior designers and anyone in the built environment industry, saying that the climate emergency and lack of biodiversity, those are the two biggest things that we need to be dealing with. So there is a pledge online that people can sign up to. Any interior designer, as long as you have a website, you can sign up to that. And any specifier with a UK outlet can also sign up to Interior Design Declares. And then it just shows people that that you care, because it's important. The more people we have signing up, the more people are getting involved, the more you actually realise that we're getting a groundswell. It's not just the minority talking about sustainability now. It's actually, you know, increasingly important, and hopefully as an industry as a whole, we'll be able to affect some real change.
But you touched on one thing there, which I think really sums up the dilemma when you mentioned natural materials. So my mother-in-law has a flat in Italy very near Carrara of the marble, and I've been going there for 25 years. And I'm telling you, the marbles are getting smaller, the mountains are getting smaller. Yeah. And yet, for my generation, I grew up with, you know, we don't want synthetic materials. We must have natural materials. You know, we must wear leather shoes, and we must have natural stone worktops. And actually now it's like, well, maybe we shouldn't be doing that because we're depleted. So what do we do?
Each thing is very, very different. I mean, I have to admit, I love to specify natural marble because for me, I think it just has, you know, I love the way, I prefer a natural material over porcelain any day of the week. And so I do, you know, some of my clients, you know, they want the book match marble look, but they don't want any dent to happen over the next however many years. So in that case, porcelain is what we'll specify. However, natural marble, there are ways of, you know, more sustainable, possibly recycled, more sustainable if the field or wherever it's being mined from, if they have some sort of practice that is sustainable. But it's about doing your research and finding the right supplier, because actually the onus is on us as suppliers, on us as designers, but really it's on the suppliers and it's our supply chain, because we're not making anything. It's about working out who's doing what that you feel most comfortable with on the supply chain. And so it's educating yourself about who the right marble suppliers would be. But the thing is with marble, yes, it's not very sustainable. 10 years ago when I was putting it in the bathroom, I didn't realise how unsustainable it was. However, it's so timeless. You know, I'm not going to rip it out, and if I ever go on to sell the house, I would hope that they wouldn't rip it out without at least thinking about it twice, because it is just such a beautiful, timeless material. But again, it's just one of those things, you know, 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
So it comes down to spending time on researching and asking questions. And talking of which, I'm going to throw it open to any questions. I think there's a microphone coming your way.
Hi there. Kate, I was on the Love Your Home stand the other day, but this is to all of you, but the question's coming from being on the stall, talking to Lee, and he mentioned to me that some of the recyclable fabrics that we'd be specifying and buying on sofas are actually produced in China from plastic bottles that are manufactured just to then destroy them.
Yeah.
How do we avoid greenwashing in such a dramatic fashion without spending... I'm a solo interior design firm based in the north of England. Some of my clients have no desire to be more sustainable, but it's a big part of the business. And, you know, if I can't be billing them for lots of time spent researching it, but at the same time, you know, how do we...
I think this was an eye-opener to me as well when I first started talking to Lee. So the velvet on the sofa is made from recycled plastic bottles in Italy in a factory that's powered by solar power. And it has all the certifications, the letters of which I will get myself in a muddle. We all know those letters. And so Lee said to me, oh, well, you know, we've got this fabric and it's got the certification. And I was a bit like, yeah, brilliant. And then he went, no, you have to understand the certification is everything. And there are a couple of more high street, big brand names producing curtains and sofas in what they're saying is recycled velvet, but there is no certification. You don't know where it's come from. Now, I don't know where they've got it from, but given that there is a practice in China where they are making plastic bottles to recycle them, to then be able to say this fabric is made from recycled bottles, I think it's all about certification and tracking it back. And I think, you know, if it hasn't got that certification, you'd have to then ask yourself the question as to where it really came from, because that is clearly key with all those fabrics.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that really doing the research on your supply chain, which I appreciate as a small business. No one really has the time to do it. But it's about, you know, sharing learning with other interior designers, and, you know, for your directory, if there are people on there that have been checked out, then using that as a directory. But just it really comes down to checking out all of the supply chain. But, you know, once you've done the research, you'll know who you use. So for example, we have probably a very small list of suppliers, because I know I fully support what they're doing, and I don't need to do the research to find anything else, because I've got such a good working relationship with those suppliers. I can throw anything at them, and they'll make it for us, because you know, as with all businesses, it's built on relationships, and actually fewer relationships of the people who have the kind of same ethos, going in the same direction as you want to go in on a sustainability perspective. Those are the kinds of suppliers that you really want to give your business to.
And I would just add, just to be aware of people who self-certify. So there are businesses out there will say that they have certification, but they did it themselves. They did their own analysis of how environmentally friendly
There's
they were.
no doubt it's a minefield.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult, yeah.
Hello. You've mentioned a few, your directory, and a few that we've taken notes from. Where do we go from now to join the conversation in terms of forums or blogs or things like that? Well, to get more information on this so that we are better informed.
Well, if you've got any interest in what the Haynes collection are doing, which we're focusing on reusing what's already out there, follow us on Instagram. We, as I said, are starting conversation with sustainable businesses. We're launching that next month. And sign up for newsletters. That's kind of information that we like to put out there. But for us, it's social media and TikTok. If anyone's on TikTok, it's not just for girls doing dances. It's actually for businesses, grown-up businesses like me. And there's the World Economic Forum is on TikTok as well, and quite a few environmentally friendly businesses. And they put out some really interesting information. So.
And I'm assuming the BIID must have.
Yes, well, the BIID, it's work in progress. So now we've done the specifying guide, we've done the agenda for what they want to do over the next few years, and part of that is CPD and creating courses for people to learn more about it. Also, Interior Design declares we're just kind of up and running, but if people want to help, we're always looking for more people to help join the cause, and then work out how we do more about educating the industry.
And I think every time you come across any manufacturer or maker, it's asking, I mean, I obviously, writing the blog, I get approached by a lot of brands to work with them, and I try and, you know, my first question, you know, will tend to be, what's your sustainability creds, or have you got any, or are you working towards any? Just, even if they haven't got any, the more we ask the question, the more we show that we're aware, the more eventually, you know, if 10 people ask them that question in a day and a month ago it was only one, they're going to start thinking, well, hang on a minute, you know. So I think it's just pressure of keeping up the pressure.
Yeah. If people realise that there is a demand for it, then they will have to create the products to satisfy that demand.
It's slow.
Yeah, it is slow, but I think the tide possibly is turning. Yeah. So anyone, I mean, anyone can download the guide from the BIID website, and anyone can join Interior Design Declares. And then as those things evolve, then there'll be more knowledge sharing. But at the moment, they've just been about kind of getting these things off the ground. And right, okay, we've done that now. What are we going to do as an industry? And then working things out. So it's quite slow, but it's gathering momentum. And so I think just being a part of those things and checking them out, you'll hopefully there'll be much more knowledge sharing to come.
And getting in at the start, always good.
Exactly.
Hello.
Sorry about that. Hi there. Firstly, a comment, which is it's really great to see sustainability being addressed at Decorex. I've been coming to Decorex for quite a few years, and it is good to see it being addressed. I run an interior design practice, got disillusioned by the amount of things I saw my clients willing to waste and just chuck in landfill, and started to go into events like EcoBuild a few years ago to be looked at when you said you were an interior designer, like, oh, you know, you're like you were some alien creature, and they couldn't quite get why you were there. So it's great that we're discussing it. The question I have for all the panel is, how do you see trends in interior design interacting with sustainability? Because we all know, if we come to shows like Decorex and others, that it's often about the new and about product launches, and to some extent that can fuel the desire for particularly clients who have a considerable amount of money to change things very often. So what do you see as the interaction between trends and sustainability?
I'm very anti-fast interiors, a bit like I'm anti-fast fashion. So yes, there may be trends, but I would say with your kind of basics, so with your you don't want to be repainting your house every however often. You don't want to be changing your sofas or any of those really expensive things. So I would say invest in those classic, timeless classics. So I would say when it comes to any big items, it's timeless classics all the time. With trends, and I just don't really buy into the fact that anyone needs to change anything in their interiors at all very often unless it's broken. However, some cushions, or if there's a colour that you feel that you have to use or whatever, buy the flowers, buy the cushions, get the small accessories, ideally sustainably sourced. So, from an artisan somewhere, but it happens to fit whatever this, spring, summer 2021 is gonna be showing. I was very involved in fashion. I was a member of the British Fashion Trust for a long time, so I've seen a lot of waste, and I know that, everyone is surviving on selling whatever the new thing is. And I think that there's ways, particularly with our interiors, there's ways of bringing that in subtly, but also by working with suppliers who are still going to be doing good for the planet. So say, for example, rather than buying something from, a shall remain nameless fast interiors brand that's, that's just making things that the other more sustainable providers can't match in terms of price, but the quality isn't there. So I would say always invest in classic timeless pieces, even if every year there'll be new classic timeless pieces because they're on trend, doesn't mean that they have to then be thrown away.
I also think maybe you can milk the fact that you've got clients with a lot of money who are willing to spend it, and if they want to change things all the time because they can afford to and they want the fashionable thing, that's a whole re-educating of a personality potentially that isn't your job as the interior designer to do. However, you can perhaps steer them towards the things that might be, so-called on trend but are made from sustainable materials, so that you're saying, well, you can have this bright red lacquered sideboard if you want. Of course, deeply fashionable, seen it all over the telly and all over the trade shows, but this one is actually made from sustainable wood and, eco paint or whatever the materials are, so that you can just perhaps direct their money in a more sustainable direction. Because I think the fact of the matter is the trends conversation is so difficult, because there's a sort of circle of, we see things that are marked as being on trend and then it's all we can find in the shops, and so we see it so much that we want it. You try buying a navy blue jumper when everyone's wearing olive green, you just won't be able to. So we all sort of have to go along with it a bit, but I think where perhaps the joy is for high net worth in rich interior clients is push them towards the sustainable options to spend their huge amounts of money on in that direction. I'm getting waved at. I think we've got 2 minutes.
I was just going to add to that, and also encouraging those people who feel that they need to make those changes to actually pass it on. So if they want to have a new sofa every 3 years, fine, make sure that sofa that they're passing on actually finds a new home, because then it's not wasted, because there are some people that just feel the need to constantly.
Big waves to Ray.
Hi, Ray. I did say that if anyone wants to speak to Ray, they can speak to him outside of the theatre, because he's just arrived.
So Ray, as you all know, is very, very knowledgeable on materials and reusing and reupholstery. So, and I'm sorry he didn't make it, but it's lovely to see you across a crowded room. Lovely. Well, thank you all so much. I think if there's any more questions, we can be at the back, I think. We're not allowed in here. There's another talk. But thank you very much for coming.